I don't think that the speaker is going to matter at all. This is my general consensus, right? And I think the vast majority of people listening to us right now agree, because the speaker is going to have limited power no matter who they are, because the Democrats still control the Senate and the Democrats still control the White House. So whatever you do in the House can't become law. What the House can do is investigate and conduct hearings and help to create a record of potential crimes that are being committed right now, for instance, in the big tech community. Because otherwise, until 2024, the Department of Justice is not going to do anything.
Speaker of the House voting underway as we speak to you right now here on Clay and Buck. It's in the early stages. It's going to take a few minutes here for all the votes. It's always a reminder, a lot of people in the House of Representatives, a lot of folks. They're tabulating the votes right now, and we're going to update you on the latest here. Now, just as a preview or in preparation for whatever this would be the seventh vote held here for Speaker of the House. And it looks like, well, we'll see. I don't think McCarthy, my understanding from sources or from people with sources in D.C. looking at this, is that McCarthy does not currently have the votes. So this is likely to go down in flames once again for him. But that may not be the case. We don't know. And there's been some reporting. Remember, a lot of this is people going to their preferred media source. People are leaking things. There's gamesmanship at work here. So it's tough to get the real story when you're not in these rooms having the conversations yourselves. But there supposedly is something close to a deal with McCarthy right now involving the 20 rebels here in the Republican Congress. And the offer, as it stands now, would allow would include term limits, a vote on term limits for members, Freedom Caucus members getting more seats on the House Rules Committee, allowing a single member to force a vote that could oust the speaker. That's a big one, right? Because I think they want to ensure, they would say, a greater degree of accountability for McCarthy should he not follow through on promises he's making, or should he just be too much of an establishment squishy Republican. But I think that you're seeing these look. If I want to know what you think on this, Clay. If this is what happens, McCarthy does get the votes needed, only Republican votes, not involving any Democrats crossing over, because Freedom Caucus members, enough of them come forward and say, fine, I'll vote for him. But they got concessions from McCarthy in that process. A win is a win, right? You got to think that is at least close to what they wanted. I mean, they took this maximum position of it can't be McCarthy. Well, if they get all these concessions and the Freedom Caucus is more powerful and then it is McCarthy, do you think they chalk that up as a W?
I think that this is really inside baseball, personal politics playing out on sort of an international and certainly national scale. So I think that there's a certain segment of these 20 that recognize that given there's only going to be 222 or whatever it is total Republican votes, and I believe it's 222, that they had the power. As long as you got 5 people, right? As long as you got 5 people who are saying, I refuse to vote for this guy or this girl, then that person can't be speaker. And we are at such a fine line between the discipline to be willing to go along is not there. And I understand people are angry and they're saying, oh, I don't like Kevin McCarthy. I don't think that the speaker is going to matter at all. This is my general consensus, right? And I think the vast majority of people listening to us right now agree, because the speaker is going to have limited power no matter who they are, because the Democrats still control the Senate and the Democrats still control the White House. So whatever you do in the House can't become law. What the House can do is investigate and conduct hearings and help to create a record of potential crimes that are being committed right now, for instance, in the big tech community. Because otherwise, until 2024, the Department of Justice is not going to do anything. So I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what is at play here. It's just an internal battle where the winner doesn't actually win that much. Does that make sense? Like, I just don't think it's going to matter at all.
So my take on this, I think you're right, and I even put out a poll that whenever this is done and the seventh ballot voting as we speak to you right now across the country, it is happening right now on the floor of Congress. The votes are being tabulated. Is anyone going to remember the speaker's fight 24 hours after it is settled? One way, whether it's McCarthy or let's say, something crazy happens and or I shouldn't say crazy, but one of the other alternatives does end up becoming speaker, which I don't see how that happens, but maybe it does happen. I don't know. I also think it's funny because you and I have been very consistently not. I understand that you and I are friends with a number of these Freedom Caucus members. I understand their position on McCarthy. I understand their frustration with the GOP overall right now. I also understand. We understand the way this is playing out based on the mechanisms that exist in the House of Representatives. So I'm kind of like, let them fight it out, figure it out, negotiate, and get it done. I'm not deeply emotionally invested in this either way. I'm not saying everyone needs to get out of the way and make room for McCarthy. I'm also not saying that I think it's likely that McCarthy is going to be defeated, right? All of this is on the one hand, there's the personal dislike factor here. We know there are a few members of the Freedom Caucus who don't like McCarthy. This is well known inside of D.C. And I mean, they don't like him. It's not about policy. It's not about anything. They don't like him. But there's also on a broader level, I think, or at the higher level, who's going to run the GOP? What is the ethos, the strategy, the overarching theme of the GOP going to be for the next 2 years? This isn't going to determine that, but I think that what you're seeing is kind of an early stage. The early stage friction of, well, what is it going to be? We're going to be entering a primary. What is a primary? It's Republicans fighting Republicans over who should be in charge.
Well, but so also is funny to me is Democrats and their media allies are almost gleeful over this right now. And what I find particularly funny about this is what they claim has to happen. Right? They're always like, when are Republicans going to stand up against other Republicans and actually fight it out? Well, actually, that's what's going on right now. And then what do they say? Oh, look how disorganized they are, right? Like you demand something and then you get it and you criticize it simultaneously, which is pretty funny in and of itself. What I believe in general is that who the Speaker of the House is, so long as it's a Republican, will not have any impact whatsoever on any of our listeners' lives, right? The difference between McCarthy and Steve Scalise, the difference between McCarthy and Jim Jordan, and I like a lot of these guys, is not going to be that substantial because they don't have that much power.
Let's assume for a second here that McCarthy ends up as Speaker. Let's assume this. I'm not saying it's happening. The vote's happening right now. We'll know. Oh, it already looks like he's losing, by the way. That's what
but the
Fox
real
is already
question,
reporting that he's about to lose the seventh consecutive vote. Okay.
The real question is, does he cut from 20 down to 8, like
is it trending in his favor?
Yes.
This is about momentum, and that will affect the conversation. But to the point I was making, Clay, on how this is about more, I think for a lot of people, this is about more than the Speaker position, right? Because to your point, you're going to get a lot of similar outcome, a lot of similar stuff happening. As long as you have a Republican of any kind in this role, it's not going to be that different in a way that affects people such that they're aware of the differences, right? If you read about it, maybe you'll see, oh, well, he brought this to the floor sooner than whatever. I do think, though, that there is right now the early stages of a leadership, not just the Speaker of the House, I mean a leadership realignment and a psychological shift within the GOP and among the base for, okay, well, who's really going to run the show? Because it is all about 2024. We know that. I mean, what you said is totally true. We don't have the Senate. We don't have the presidency. There's no great sweeping legislation. We're not getting constitutional carry in 50 states right now. We're not going to slash and burn all the waste.
There's almost nothing any of them can do.
Nothing that's going to happen in that respect. So what I do think is that, and I also believe that people are a little frustrated with all the promises from Republican members of Congress, who, let's be honest, a lot of them just want to go on Fox so the donor class sees them and they're going to get, checks sent to them, right?
Yeah.
It's when they talk about how we're going to hold them accountable. Really? I don't think Democrats feel very held accountable at all recently. I don't think there are any Democrats saying, oh, those Republicans, they play rough. They're really tough. So I think that this is maybe an early part of a conversation that's happening, and maybe an intramural fight, not just a conversation, among people in the GOP saying, well, who are we? What are we going to do? How are we going to fight? And who's going to be in charge? Because that still is to be determined. And look, Trump weighed in on McCarthy's side, as we know. Everyone didn't snap to attention.
Even people who were longtime Trump people. I mean, we saw last night Lauren Bobert and Sean Hannity. I thought it was great television, but
I think we got to play that. Can we play that when we come back? We should have played that one sooner because I wanted to see where this vote goes. So, Clay, why don't we do that? We'll do the Bobert and Sean. We're friends with Lauren. We love Sean. They had an exchange, but this is what, this is politics. People should have exchanges. People should be able to bring ideas back and forth.
It's a conflict sport.
I mean, Clay thinks Gen X is better than being a millennial. Like, there are crazy ideas even among family.
I think Gen X saving the country and you millennials are destroying it. That's my opinion. Buck disagrees.
So, he's allowed to have this very wrong opinion, and we'll get into the exchange with Lauren and Sean Hannity coming up here in a moment from last night's Fox.
Kevin McCarthy has lost a 7th straight vote to become Speaker, cannot get to 218. And last night there were some fireworks on Fox News. Sean Hannity had Lauren Bobert on the program. We certainly have had both of those guy and gal on this show in the past. We like both, but fireworks are good. We'll play a couple here. Let's play cut 3 and then cut 4 here as well, which will give you the full context, I believe, of their exchange.
Kevin McCarthy has 203 votes. Your side has 20. So if I'm going to use your words and your methodology and your math, isn't it time for you to pack it in and your side to pack it in, considering he has over 200 and you have 20?
Sean, I understand the frustration, I promise you, but
I'm not frustrated.
He
You
does
didn't
not
answer
have the
my
votes,
question.
and we are hearing
I'm
from
not
many
frustrated.
people who are still voting with Kevin McCarthy,
You're
who are
not
very
answering my question.
supportive of what we're doing, and they're cheering us on. So there are more for us than are against us, and they are waiting for Kevin to cave.
Okay.
The American people are certainly frustrated by.
I'm frustrated by you not answering a direct question. I
I'm
asked you a simple question, Congresswoman. I feel like I'm getting a liberal
I'm not going
an
to
answer
support
from a
Kevin
liberal.
McCarthy, Sean.
Okay, so even if you only have 30 votes,
Kevin McCarthy.
You will not
If I am
abide
the
by
last
what you
person
told President
standing,
Trump to
which
abide
I don't believe
by.
I
got
will
it.
be.
I feel like we've made progress.
Look, I love President Trump. You're not going to turn me on him. You're not going to pit him against me.
Not trying to pit him against you. That's what you said to him.
And I am standing. I have
You're the
seen
one
the
that said
broken
it to
trust.
him.
I have seen the lack of accountability. Well, we are getting phone calls saying that we need to stop this. Kevin does not have the votes for
I got
Speaker.
it.
Period.
Thank
we need
you.
to find a consensus candidate, get this right, and get our country back on track. Thanks so much, Sean.
A little bit of fireworks there, Buck. So here's the real essence of this question, which is what you and I have also been talking about. Who breaks first? Do the 20 who have said Kevin McCarthy is not our guy, we're not going to vote for him, or do the roughly 200? And that's Sean's point is not a bad one. I mean, he's making a strong argument. You're saying, hey, we're not budging, but you only have 20 and aren't necessarily adding any new adherents. The 200 only have 200, but they're not adding any new adherents either. How do you break the logjam, and why should the 200 break as opposed to the 20? That's the essence of the question here, Buck.
I'd also just point out, first of all, the Democrats being gleeful about this. I mean, that's an observation. It's true. Who cares? Democrats, they're anything that allows them to pat themselves in the back and feel like they're superior and so smart, while they're triple masking and putting their 6 vaccine needles on their Facebook profile. They'll do that. Doesn't really matter. If this goes on for a few weeks, if this goes on for a couple of months, I agree with your overall point that this specific role is unlikely to have any effect whatsoever that any individual American is aware of, meaning whether the Speaker of the House is McCarthy, Steve Scalise, Jim Jordan doesn't want it. People voted for him yesterday. Matt Gaetz apparently just cast a vote for Donald Trump to be Speaker of the House.
The Speaker doesn't have to be a congressperson for people out there who have not thought through this.
But that people are there are a lot of eyebrows being raised about that one way or the other. Go, wait a second, now we're putting the Trump name in the mix. So with all this going on, though, you know, I think it's important to keep in context. It's not really going to. It's a part of a larger conversation, maybe, and part of a realignment within the GOP. And in that sense, it is an important piece in the puzzle. But this is not, you know, look, it's not a presidential primary, right? I mean, it's not as meaningful as some of the other GOP intra-party discussions and let's be honest, fights. We all know, I keep reminding everybody, look at how tense people are right now over this speaker's battle. I mean, a lot of people are getting very angry. I'm not angry one way or the other. I'm looking at this saying, okay, I get it. What's going on? What happens here? You and I have friends on both sides of the issue in terms of what they're supporting right now. But, you know, if we go into a primary, it's going to get a lot uglier. It's going to get a lot uglier. So, look, this is politics. It's messy. It happens. I don't understand. I think it's let it play out. Let them fight. They got some concessions. It's all going to be okay. That's my feeling on this one. And you know, maybe the establishment getting a brushback pitch here thrown by the rebels is a good thing.
Conflict is good, right? We kind of bury this idea of conflict, or we treat it as if it is a bad thing. But conflict often leads to a better resolution. So pretending that everything is perfect when in reality there are disagreements, which Democrats do all the time, is not necessarily the way to have progress, right? This battle can be good.